Welcome to this extraordinary story. What you're about to hear is not just history. It's a warning, a mystery, a transformation, a nightmare, and a lesson. It's the story of a boy who was born with everything: wealth, respect, comfort. But something changed. He didn't become a businessman. He didn't become a leader. He became the most hunted man in modern history. A man whose name made the whole world freeze. A man who disappeared from the face of the earth for nearly 10 years. A man the world wanted dead. But the real story? It's much deeper. It's not just about what he did. It's about how he became who he became. How power and belief, pain and purpose, wealth and war can destroy not just one man, but shake the entire world. This story will take you from Saudi palaces to Afghan caves, from luxury to hiding, from a young boy in a school uniform to a ghost in a secret compound. And most importantly, while you listen, you will also be learning English. You will improve your vocabulary. You will understand sentence structure. You will practice listening. So this video is not just about history. It's about your future. You will finish this story knowing who Osama bin Laden really was. And you will finish it smarter, stronger, and better in English. So sit back, take a deep breath, because this is going to be unforgettable. Part 1. The rich boy who would one day shock the world. Let's go back, not to 2001, not to 2011. Let's go back to 1957. That's when Osama bin Laden was born, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. But he wasn't born in poverty. He wasn't born in a tent or a war zone. He was born into luxury. His father, Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden, was not just rich. He was one of the richest men in Saudi Arabia, a construction tycoon, a man trusted by the Saudi royal family. In fact, the bin Laden family was like royalty without being royal. Imagine palaces, private drivers, servants, expensive food, big houses. That was Osama's world from the very beginning. But here's the strange part. Even though he had money, Osama was different. He was quiet, shy, polite, serious. He didn't laugh loudly. He didn't cause trouble. He wasn't like the other rich kids. He studied at Al Thagr Model School in Jeddah. It was a school for the elite. Wealthy families sent their children there to prepare for success. But even there, Osama was more religious than others. While most boys played football and watched TV, Osama read the Quran and memorized verses. He was already starting to believe that life should be about something bigger. Osama wasn't violent. He didn't talk about war or killing. But he believed deeply in Islam, and not just practicing it. He believed in the idea of fighting to protect it. Teachers said he would ask deep questions about religion. He would stay silent during lunch, thinking. He didn't chase girls. He didn't skip class. He looked like a normal, serious boy. But inside, he was building a belief system. By the time he was 17, something big happened. The world around him changed. When Osama was still a teenager in 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. It was a major global event, and many Muslims around the world saw it as an attack on Islamic land. That was the moment Osama changed. He decided that he couldn't just stay rich and silent. He wanted to fight. He left his comfort. He left his family. He left the air conditioning and the wealth and the servants, and he went to Afghanistan. There he trained with the Mujahideen, Muslim fighters resisting the Soviet army. He wasn't a good soldier at first. He was skinny, not very strong, not a trained killer. But he had something powerful. Money plus belief. He used his family's wealth to buy weapons, build training camps, and recruit fighters. He started gaining influence, respect, attention. And slowly, his identity changed. He wasn't just Osama the Saudi anymore. He was becoming Osama the warrior, Osama the leader, Osama the believer. This is where everything began. Because in Afghanistan, Osama learned the art of guerrilla warfare, made connections with other extremist leaders, started to believe he was chosen for a bigger mission. He also saw something dangerous: victory. The Mujahideen, with help from America, Pakistan, and others, eventually pushed out the Soviets. This made Osama believe, if we can defeat a superpower like the Soviet Union, we can defeat anyone. That belief would later shake the entire world. Part 2. The birth of Al-Qaeda, the base of global terror. By 1989, the Soviet Union was finally gone from Afghanistan. The Mujahideen had won. They had defended their land, and many fighters went back home, back to their countries, families, and peace. But Osama did not. Why? Because for Osama bin Laden, this wasn't just about one war. This wasn't just about the Soviets. This was about something bigger. He believed, if we defeated one superpower, we can defeat the next one too. And in Osama's eyes, the next enemy was not the Soviet Union. It was the United States of America. Why America? Let's understand this deeply, because this is where his mind truly changed. In the early 1990s, America had military bases in Saudi Arabia, Osama's home country. They were there to help protect against Saddam Hussein after the Gulf War. But Osama was furious. He believed no non-Muslim army should ever step on Islam's holy land, Saudi Arabia. America was controlling the Middle East for oil and power. Muslim countries were becoming weak and corrupt by following the West. And from that belief came his next dangerous thought. If Muslim governments won't protect Islam, then we must fight ourselves. In 1988 or 1989, Osama officially created a new organization, small at first, called Al-Qaeda. What did this name mean? In Arabic, it means the base or the foundation. To Osama, it was the base of a global Islamic army, not just fighters in Afghanistan, but across the world. He started recruiting fighters from Egypt, Sudan, Pakistan, Yemen, Algeria, Iraq, and more. Many were angry young men, frustrated with their governments, poor and easily influenced. But Osama was not just a fighter now. He became a speaker, a strategist, a teacher of dangerous ideas. He created training camps, mostly in Sudan and Afghanistan. He taught how to make bombs, how to fire weapons, how to disappear, and most dangerously, how to hate. Before September 11th, Osama and Al-Qaeda tested the world. Let's look at the early attacks. Many people don't even know these happened. 1992. Yemen hotel bombing. Osama's men bombed a hotel in Aden, Yemen. The target was American soldiers, but they missed. Still, this was the first official attack by Al-Qaeda. 1993. World Trade Center bombing. First attempt. A truck bomb exploded in the basement parking of the World Trade Center in New York. 6 people were killed, over 1,000 injured. It wasn't directly done by Osama, but the attackers were linked to his network. This showed America is now a target. 1998, U.S. embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania. 2 truck bombs exploded outside American embassies. 224 people died, thousands injured. This attack was 100% planned and executed by Al-Qaeda. It was the moment the world realized This man is serious. This group is global. 2000. USS Cole bombing. A U.S. Navy ship stopped in Yemen for fuel. A small boat, full of explosives, crashed into it. 17 American sailors killed. Osama claimed responsibility. Around this time, Osama began releasing video messages. You may have seen them. Sitting in a cave, wearing military clothes, speaking calmly but with deep anger. He spoke in Arabic, but the world translated every word. He said things like, "America is the enemy of Islam. We will continue to attack until they leave our lands. Jihad is the duty of every Muslim." But here's the terrifying part. He didn't sound like a crazy man screaming. He spoke slowly, like a teacher. He smiled sometimes. He looked calm, almost like a professor. That's why so many young, confused men believed him. He wasn't just killing. He was brainwashing. By the late 1990s, America knew Osama was dangerous. They tried to freeze his bank accounts, pressure Sudan and Afghanistan to stop protecting him, even tried to bomb his camps using missiles in 1998. But it didn't work. He kept moving. He kept training. He kept building his army. He kept planning. And deep inside the mountains of Afghanistan, Osama had started planning something so big, it would change the world forever. The plot of 9/11 begins. Late 1999, early 2000. Osama brought in a special group, known later as the Hamburg Cell. Men from Germany, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. He gave them a mission. Learn how to fly planes, not to fly them in the sky, but into buildings. They trained in Germany, Malaysia, and finally, the United States. They went to flying schools in Florida, Arizona, and other states. They lived normal lives. Nobody knew their plan. Nobody suspected anything. Osama funded the entire operation. He gave orders from Afghanistan, and he waited. In August 2001, Osama recorded a secret video. He smiled. He said, "Something big is coming. America will never feel safe again." And then he vanished into the mountains. Part 3. The day the world stopped. September 11th, 2001. It was a Tuesday. Just a normal, quiet, sunny morning in the United States. People were getting ready for work. Children were eating breakfast. Flights were taking off as usual. The world looked peaceful. But deep inside that calm, something unthinkable was about to happen. Because on this morning, Osama bin Laden's master plan would finally unfold. The plan he had worked on for years. The plan that had trained 19 men to die. The plan that would make him the most feared man alive. Let's walk through that day, not from far away, but step by step, minute by minute, exactly as it happened. 5:45 a.m., Boston, Massachusetts. The first two hijackers, Mohammed Atta and Abdulaziz Al-Omari, passed through airport security at Logan International Airport. They looked like any other passengers, calm, silent, focused. They boarded American Airlines Flight 11, heading to Los Angeles. But they had no plans of landing. At the same time, other teams of hijackers boarded United Airlines Flight 175, American Airlines Flight 77, and United Airlines Flight 93. 4 planes, 19 men. 4 deadly missions. 8:14 a.m. Flight 11 is hijacked. Inside Flight 11, the attackers stood up. They stabbed flight attendants and pushed passengers to the back. Mohammed Atta took control of the cockpit. He turned the plane south, toward New York City. At exactly 8:46 a.m., people on the streets of Manhattan looked up, and saw something horrifying. Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The impact was massive. The plane exploded on contact. The building caught fire instantly. Glass, steel, smoke. Everything rained down. Thousands of workers were inside, but people still didn't know what happened. News anchors thought it was an accident. No one imagined it was terrorism. 9:03 a.m. The second hit. 17 minutes later, as the world watched in shock, Flight 175 approached. This plane smashed into the South Tower, live on television. Now there was no doubt. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a crash. This was a coordinated attack. In that moment, the entire world changed. 9:37 a.m. The Pentagon hit. Meanwhile, Flight 77 was flying low near Washington, D.C. It crashed into the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. military. The building exploded, walls collapsed, smoke filled the air. The heart of American defense was burning. 9:59 a.m. South Tower collapses. The South Tower hit second, suddenly collapsed. Just 56 minutes after impact, it came down in a cloud of smoke, metal, and screams. People ran through the streets as the ground shook. Emergency workers were buried. The skyline of New York was vanishing. 10:03 a.m. Flight 93 crashes in Pennsylvania. The fourth plane, Flight 93, never reached its target. The passengers had received news on their phones. They knew what had happened to the other planes. They fought back. They stormed the cockpit, and the hijackers crashed the plane into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Everyone on board died, but their actions saved the U.S. Capitol from being destroyed. After burning for 102 minutes, the North Tower also collapsed. New York disappeared under smoke. Ash covered the streets. Firefighters screamed for help. People were covered in dust like ghosts. The most iconic buildings in America were gone. In total, 2,977 innocent people were killed. People from 90 different countries died. It was the deadliest terrorist attack in human history. As the world watched the news, searched for loved ones, cried in silence, Osama bin Laden was in Afghanistan, hiding in the mountains. He didn't speak at first. He didn't take credit publicly. He waited. He wanted the world to feel fear before he admitted anything. But behind the scenes, he was smiling. According to people close to him, he said, "America is weak. We hit them in the heart, and they fell like a house of cards." Later, a video was discovered, not meant for public. In it, Osama laughed and described how the buildings fell better than he imagined. That video confirmed he was the mastermind. America changed overnight. Flights were grounded. Military forces were put on a high alert. Families searched for bodies. People wrote names of missing loved ones on walls. And on that very same night, U.S. President George W. Bush stood in front of the nation and said, "We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them." The United States quickly discovered that Osama was hiding in Afghanistan under protection of the Taliban, a strict Islamic group ruling the country. America gave an ultimatum: give us Osama bin Laden, or face war. The Taliban refused, and so the War on Terror officially began. On October 7, 2001, less than 1 month after 9/11, America, along with allies like the UK, began bombing Afghanistan. The goal was clear: destroy the Taliban, kill or capture Osama bin Laden, crush al-Qaeda. But Osama was already on the run. He knew the mountains, he knew the caves, He had money, he had protection. So as American bombs hit Afghan soil, Osama vanished. He hid in Tora Bora, a mountain region full of caves. He moved silently, used secret tunnels, paid locals for silence. Even when U.S. forces came close, he escaped. And just like that, Osama bin Laden became the ghost of the mountains. For the next 10 years, the world would search for him. But he was gone. Watching. Waiting. And still believed to be dangerous. America was ready to do anything to find Osama bin Laden. The world's most powerful military had entered Afghanistan. Thousands of soldiers were searching every cave, valley, and village. But he was gone. Not dead. Not captured. Just vanished. The man who destroyed buildings in New York was now hiding somewhere in the rocks and dust of Afghanistan. Let's now uncover every single move Osama made during those 10 years of hiding, and how the CIA began putting the puzzle together, piece by piece, until they found the unfindable. In December 2001, American troops discovered something big, a network of deep caves in the Tora Bora Mountains, near the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. They believed Osama was inside. He was. U.S. jets dropped massive bombs. Special forces searched cave after cave. Afghan fighters helped. But Osama slipped away, likely through secret tunnels, possibly on foot or mule, across the snowy mountain trails into Pakistan. It was the perfect escape. And from that moment, the trail went cold. For years after September 11th, America thought Osama was still somewhere in the tribal areas between Afghanistan and Pakistan. The CIA, along with Pakistani intelligence, ISI, searched caves, villages, phone records, satellite images, human sources. But nothing worked. Osama had become a ghost. No phones, no internet, no travel, no trace. Sometimes audio tapes or video recordings appeared. He would talk about the war, about America, about Islam. But he never said where he was, and by the time the videos were verified, he was already long gone from that location. Let's look at how Osama survived without being found for nearly a decade. 1. No electronic communication. He didn't use phones or emails. All messages were hand-delivered by trusted men called couriers. 2. No digital footprint, no internet use, no social media, no photos. His face became invisible to technology. 3. Safe houses and secrecy. He moved between different safe houses across Pakistan. These homes were usually in quiet towns, not in major cities or airports. 4th, loyal inner circle. Only a few people knew his location. These people were loyal, deeply religious, and believed he was on a holy mission. Even though Osama was hiding, Al-Qaeda continued to operate. They inspired new terror groups in Iraq, Africa, and Southeast Asia, claimed responsibility for Madrid bombings, 2004, and London bombings, 2005, released messages through Osama and his second-in-command, Ayman al-Zawahiri. Al-Qaeda had become more than a group. It was now an idea, spread across borders, carried by hatred, and powered by Osama's legend. Even though he was invisible, his influence was alive and expanding. After years of failure, the CIA changed its strategy. They stopped looking for Osama directly. Instead, they started searching for the people around him, his messengers, bodyguards, and couriers. One name stood out: Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. He was a trusted courier, known to deliver Osama's messages. For years, the CIA tracked him, watching phone calls, emails, movements, slowly building a picture of his life. But no one could find where he was going. Until one day in 2010, something finally changed. The CIA found that al-Kuwaiti was living in a quiet town in Pakistan called Abbottabad. But what caught their attention was the house he lived in. It wasn't normal. It was strange. It was hiding something. Let's describe it fully. It was 3 stories tall, surrounded by high walls. The compound had no internet and no phone lines. There were barbed wires, 2 security gates, and few windows. Even the trash was not put outside. It was burned inside the compound. Inside, there were many children and women, but the family never went out. There were no visitors, no social life. The neighbors found it suspicious, but they never reported anything. Why? Because in that part of Pakistan, people don't ask too many questions. Through weeks of watching the compound with satellites and local agents, the CIA noticed a tall man walking on the 3rd-floor balcony, always alone. He never stepped outside. He never spoke to anyone. He looked like he was in charge, but they didn't have a photo. They didn't have proof. Still, the CIA believed this could be Osama bin Laden. In 2010, U.S. President Barack Obama was briefed. His intelligence team said, "We have found a house. We believe Osama might be inside, but we're not 100% sure." It was risky. What if it was the wrong person? What if Pakistan got angry? What if it failed? But Obama made a decision. If this is him, we will go in and get him. We can't wait anymore. So they began to plan the most secret and dangerous mission in modern history. In a top-secret building, a team of experts designed a full model of the Abbottabad compound. They studied building structure, wall heights, room positions, escape routes. They selected the best soldiers from SEAL Team 6, the most elite unit in the U.S. military. For months, they trained using an exact replica of the compound. Every entry, every door, every room. This wasn't a war. This was a surgical operation. Everything had to be silent, fast, and final. The operation was given a name: Operation Neptune Spear. On April 28, 2011, Obama was told, "Sir, we are ready." He gave the order, "Go." But no one outside the White House knew. Not Pakistan, not the media, not the military. The operation had to remain secret, because this wasn't just about killing Osama. This was about sending a message to the world. You can run, you can hide, but we will never stop looking. Part 4. The night they found him. The raid on Abbottabad. The day was May 1st, 2011. But it was nighttime in Pakistan. A peaceful, quiet evening in the small city of Abbottabad. Children had finished dinner. Lights were out in most homes. The neighborhood was asleep. But far above that calm silence, in the skies no one could see, something was coming. 2 black helicopters, stealth-modified Black Hawks, cut across the night sky. They carried 23 Navy SEALs, a translator, a combat dog, and years of pain, training, and planning. These men were members of SEAL Team 6, the elite American unit trusted with the most dangerous missions in the world. Their destination? The mysterious high-walled compound on Kakul Road, Abbottabad. The place the CIA believed was hiding Osama bin Laden. 12:30 a.m. The helicopters arrive. The mission began in total silence. The helicopters flew low, using the mountains for cover, entering Pakistani airspace without permission, without announcement. Inside the helicopters, the SEALs checked their weapons. Night vision goggles on. No one spoke. They had no backup. If something went wrong, no one was coming to help. As they reached the compound, something unexpected happened. One of the helicopters tried to hover above the compound to drop soldiers on the roof. But because of the hot air and narrow walls, the helicopter lost lift. It began to spin and crash, but the pilot stayed calm. He crash-landed it inside the compound's wall without anyone getting hurt. Instantly, the mission changed. They couldn't enter from the roof as planned. Now they had to blow their way in. They used explosives to breach doors, walls, and gates. The loud blasts woke the entire neighborhood, but the team kept moving. The compound had 3 floors. The SEALs moved fast, clearing each level, shouting commands in Arabic to confuse and control anyone inside. They found women screaming, children crying, men hiding in panic. But the soldiers didn't stop. They weren't here to hurt innocent people. They had one name in mind, one face they had studied for years. And they knew. He was on the top floor. On the 3rd floor, 2 SEALs reached a closed bedroom door. They could hear movement inside, a man's voice, a woman's scream. They pushed open the door. Inside was a tall man with a long beard, wearing traditional clothes. He was not holding a weapon. But he didn't surrender either. The SEALs recognized him immediately. It was Osama bin Laden. He stood behind one of his wives. She moved to block him. The soldiers fired. She was wounded. Then they fired again, 2 shots, into Osama bin Laden's chest and head. It was over in seconds. No final speech, no last fight, no grand escape. The man who had disappeared for 10 years, who had watched his videos spread across the world, who had believed he was untouchable, was now lying in a pool of blood, in a silent room, on a simple bed. The SEALs didn't stop. They collected Osama's body, took hard drives, USBs, papers, everything they could find, took photographs of the dead body for proof. They also confirmed he had 3 wives and several children in the house. His son, Khalid bin Laden, was also killed during the operation. The compound was not a fortress, but a prison. He had not left the house for years. Locals heard explosions, gunshots, and saw helicopters. But most didn't know what was happening. By the time the Pakistani military reacted, it was already too late. The operation was finished in 38 minutes. The SEALs destroyed the damaged helicopter by setting it on fire to prevent anyone from studying its secret technology. Then they boarded the 2nd helicopter with Osama's body and flew out of Pakistan. While the raid was happening thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C., President Barack Obama and his top team were sitting in a small room, watching the operation live through a camera on a soldier's helmet. It was tense, silent. Every second felt like an hour. When the SEALs finally confirmed, Geronimo Equiacho, enemy killed in action. The room remained still. Then, silent relief. The 10-year manhunt was over. Osama's body was flown to Afghanistan, where U.S. officials took DNA samples, photos, fingerprint matches. Everything confirmed the identity. Then, in a final decision designed to avoid any grave becoming a shrine, the U.S. buried Osama bin Laden at sea within 24 hours, as per Islamic tradition. The sea was chosen to ensure no one could visit his grave. And just like that, the man who had spent years hiding now had no place left on Earth. May 2nd, 2011. The world wakes up to the news. In the morning, President Obama stood before cameras and announced to the world, "Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden." People cried. Crowds gathered in New York and Washington. They sang, they cheered, they held signs that said, "Justice has been done." Around the world, reactions were complex. Some felt relief, some felt closure. Some questioned the legality of the raid. Some feared revenge attacks. But one thing was clear. Osama bin Laden was no longer a threat. Part 5. The Ghost and the Legacy. After Osama bin Laden was dead. But death is not always the end of a man. Sometimes death is just the beginning of the questions. Who was he? Really? What did he leave behind? What did the world learn? And most importantly, why do his ideas still echo in the dark corners of the earth? Let's walk through everything that followed his death. The secrets that were uncovered, the truths that were buried, and the shadows that remained. After the SEALs left the Abbottabad compound, they didn't just take a body. They took over 5 computers, more than 100 USB drives, hard drives, papers, handwritten journals, letters, DVDs, flashcards. It was the largest intelligence haul from a single terrorist target in history. The CIA and FBI worked day and night to read, translate, and analyze everything. And what they found inside those drives was shocking. Behind the walls of his compound, Osama lived a double life. He was not just hiding. He was planning, writing, recording his thoughts. From his journals and files, we learned he was still in charge. Even though he hadn't stepped outside in years, Osama was still giving orders to al-Qaeda groups in different countries. He sent letters to leaders in Yemen, Somalia, Iraq, and North Africa. He gave them instructions on who to target, when to attack, how to recruit young fighters, how to spread propaganda. He was the invisible leader, like a general working through messengers. He was afraid of technology. Osama warned his men never to use phones or internet. He believed drones could track signals. He feared satellites, tracking devices, and spies. That's why his compound had no Wi-Fi, no telephone, and no TV antennas. Every message was delivered by hand. It was slow, but it protected him for years. He worried about al-Qaeda's future. In his private letters, Osama expressed concern that al-Qaeda was losing its image. He believed that too many innocent Muslims were being killed in attacks by regional leaders. He feared that people were turning away from the movement. He even wrote about rebranding al-Qaeda to gain more sympathy from the public. It was strange. The man who planned the deadliest attack in history was now worried that his group was becoming too extreme. He was planning more attacks. Perhaps the most disturbing detail. He was actively planning more attacks, even while in hiding. He suggested targeting trains in the United States, major global events, political and military leaders, high-value business and economic targets. Even in isolation, his mind was working like a general, cold, strategic, focused. His family inside the compound. What happened to them? When the raid ended, Osama's wives and children were captured alive. There were 3 wives, several daughters and sons, 2 young boys who had never left the compound in their life. They were handed over to Pakistani authorities, and later, some were sent back to their home countries. His youngest wife, Amal, from Yemen, was shot in the leg during the raid but survived. She later told investigators, Osama never left the house. He spent most of his time reading, praying, watching old videos. He told his children never to look out the windows. To the children, the compound was not a prison. It was their world. They didn't know there was a world outside. They never went to school. They never had friends. They never knew why the lights had to stay dim and why their father was always afraid. After the raid, one question shook the world. How could Osama bin Laden live in a military town for years and no one knew? The compound was only a few hundred meters from a Pakistani military academy, in a neighborhood full of soldiers, police, and retired generals, not hidden in the mountains, but right in a city. The Pakistani government claimed they had no idea he was there, but many questioned that. Was someone protecting him? Was there silent support? Or was it simply failure? No one fully knows. But the raid damaged the relationship between America and Pakistan deeply. One might think the death of Osama bin Laden ended terrorism. It didn't. In fact, new threats rose. ISIS grew in Iraq and Syria. Boko Haram expanded in Africa. Lone wolf attackers appeared in Europe, and the U.S. Al-Qaeda became weaker. But the ideology Osama left behind had already spread. He had turned terrorism into a global brand. And even without him, others picked up the message. That's the danger of a belief. It doesn't die with the man. Osama bin Laden was not just a man with guns. He was a psychological weapon. He used religion, emotion, history, revenge, injustice, fear to control people's minds. That's what made him so dangerous. He knew how to make young, angry, lost men feel important. He gave them a mission. He gave them a reason to feel like heroes, even when they were doing something evil. He turned suicide into sacrifice. He turned confusion into purpose. And he did it without shouting. He did it calmly, with a soft voice, sitting on the floor, speaking in the name of something greater. That's why he attracted thousands. Not because he was charismatic, but because he knew how to fill the emptiness inside people. And that is what the world still fights today. Final reflection. What we must learn from his story. This story was never just about war. It was never just about politics or Islam or America. It was about something deeper. How belief can become blindness. How pain can turn into hatred. How power, once given to the wrong mind, can break nations. Osama bin Laden believed he was doing the right thing. He believed he was a warrior, a savior, a voice for the weak. But in the end, all he left behind was cities destroyed, families broken, children without parents, countries torn apart, and a world that lost its sense of safety. His life is not something to admire. It's something to understand. Because until we understand how he became who he became, we won't understand how others still fall into the same darkness. Osama bin Laden was born in luxury. He could have lived a life of peace, privilege, and contribution. But he chose something else. He chose anger. He chose ideology. He chose violence. He chose death for others, and finally, for himself. And in the end, he didn't die as a hero. He died in a dark room, hiding behind his wife, without a country, without a future, without a name left that brings honor. That is the true ending of his story. This video is created purely for educational and informational purposes. It is based on verified historical events, public records, and global news reports. We do not support, glorify, or promote any form of violence, terrorism, or hatred in any way. Our mission is to educate, inspire thoughtful discussion, and support English learners around the world through real-life stories.